Well,
yeah,
I'm
you
hot.
are. Okay, so we are going. It is Suzilla.
Welcome to Suzilla. It is Thursday. It is the 26th of October. I'm Suzie. That's Matt. Welcome to Wenatchee Insurance and Suzie Health Solutions and all the affiliated with it.
Yeah, and today we are talking about art.
Yep, art is important. Art is critical. Art is dear to my heart.
Well, it's one of those things that we hear a lot of lip service when it comes to STEM and the whole science mathematics.
Yeah, and that's I'm not dismissing the importance of the STEM programs, but the arts are also are equally important in a totally different way.
Well, I think that they're probably more important to talk about in this day and age.
To talk about, absolutely.
And the reason why is because they get traditionally defunded the first.
Yeah, well, yeah, arts are always the first thing to go.
Yeah, it's always, let's get rid of the band, or let's
get rid of the
choir. The choir is actually pretty cheap when it comes to.
Yeah, but it's usually the band goes. The band has a tendency to go first. The theater program will go quickly.
Theater, yeah.
And yeah, to be fair, those can be an investment for a school district.
And it's a horrible thing because that's where people learn to connect.
That's true. That's absolutely true. It's because when you're dealing with just a classroom setting and sitting and doing experiments or doing math or reading history books, well, actually with history and English, you can have more interaction a little bit.
History, not so much. English, you're getting back to the connection, particularly when you start to deal with, like Shakespeare and performance.
Yeah.
You're back into the arts.
Now with history, you do have the opportunity if you're debating different sides of a historical situation. It depends. A lot of that hinges on the teacher.
Hinges on the teacher. And again, history is kind of in a weird category because it doesn't fall in the STEM category.
Right. And it
doesn't fall in the arts because you can't get too creative with it.
No, because it's art, because it's history.
It's history.
But it's its own monster. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the arts today. And you're right. English has a tendency to lead into the arts because of playwriting and the like.
And the interpretation. Like I said,
and novels.
It's that connection to human factor. And it's one of the things that we're missing today.
We are. We really are. With the invention of the internet, we got more insular as human beings. We had seemed to get our little nests going on in our little homes and interact with people in a virtual manner rather than in a personal manner.
Yeah, and it has to do with the whole logarithms and the silo of your materials.
Yeah.
And that is really cutting off that connection factor. I've got hands that are bricks. I don't draw, I don't sculpt, I don't paint, but I can still appreciate it.
You can't, but you do other forms of art. I have in the past sculpted. I can't draw to save my life, really. Perspective has always eluded me. I have written, and will probably write again. It's been a while, and I appreciate. And I've done some performing and some directing.
Oh yeah, and we both did choirs.
Yeah, we did choirs because that was the cheapest instrument we could get our hands on.
It's the cheapest instrument we could play.
That's right, our voices. But yeah, I mean, arts are important because you get a real sense of a different sense of community, and it also gives kids who are not adept at the STEM lines something that they can excel in.
Well, I'm not with the whole either or aspect, and the reason why I'm not on the either or aspect because people who do music, there's been studies on this. This is where you get your geek out. Been studies on people who work with music and their higher understanding of math.
Well, that's because, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I also know that from a high school perspective, for example, it's still very much an either or situation. You got your band geeks and you got your math geeks. Although the math does have a tendency to cross over to music. You're absolutely right. You'll see that a lot more frequently.
Well, I think the silo there
Yeah.
is a time aspect.
I can see that. Explain to our audience what you mean.
And you are limited to how many hours a day you spend on doing something.
Yeah.
And if you get heavily involved in one subject or another, it tends to push out others.
No, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, if you're really, I've experienced that myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's why it's important to A, strike a balance, and B, be aware that you're doing that.
Well, it also leads into some time management skills. You got to get creative with time.
Yeah, and that's not always easy to do. But I'm just kind of thinking how one of the things that we started off with is how the first thing that if a school district, I'm leading back to the schools because we've got a high school student who enjoys the arts. He's in the theater club, he's in the drama club, he's involved in the plays and the musicals, and he's in the choir. He's been in the band. He also has an affection for history he doesn't believe it, but he's also adept at the sciences and maths. Well, maths.
He doesn't enjoy them despite having skills in them.
And that's fair. You don't have to enjoy it to know how to do it.
Yeah.
But you don't pursue it because you don't enjoy it.
Well, see, I think it leads into that human connection. Math is a very solitary event.
It can be.
And if you
that's why they have like the mathletes.
Yeah, and again, very solitary because I was a mathlete. It's like, they're mathletes. Yeah, you're just targets on your chest in your junior high.
Yes, and you also have events where other mathletes come together and have competition. So there's your social aspect.
It is getting better, but it's still not no Big Bang Theory.
No, with history, you have like Model UN.
Yes. However, if you're an only child, one of the things that you have that tendency to crave is that connective aspect. And that connective aspect, the easiest path to that is through the arts.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's going to be other people that think like you.
No, it's not think like you.
Okay, I'm wrong. Correct me.
It's to experience like you.
Okay, experience like me.
It's to feel like you. You're looking for that human touch emotion.
All right.
Of other people.
Okay.
And this is very important when it comes to business.
Yes.
Because unless you plan on living a cookie cutter lifestyle, 9 to 5, never having to put any sort of thought into anything, you're gonna have some creative flair at times.
Okay, so you can choose a 9 to 5 work life and still have a very creative life from 6 to 8 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, but then you're in that you're pushing things out with time. Again, it's time management.
Well, yeah. What I'm saying is you can work 9 to 5 for the man and still go out there and have wonderful creative outlets.
Yes.
I did that for years.
It is.
And yes, it is time management.
It is time management. And I think the average person working 9 to 5 is commuting an hour and a half either way.
Oh my, I don't know where you live.
Well, if you get to the urban side, you are commuting.
And that's why you pick a artsy-fartsy thing that is near where you work. So you're going from your job to your artsy-fartsy thing, and then you go your hour and a half commute home. See, logic.
Yes, and let's get into some of the benefits.
Okay.
Of art.
Okay.
The first thing is the appreciation, the setup.
Yeah.
I've seen some amazing booths and amazing giveaways in the insurance industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've seen that a really good example of amazing art crossing into business is like Chamber of Commerce dinners where they have these tables where you can, where the sponsor of the table decorates. And that's inevitably that one gal in the office who can throw a party.
And it's an art.
And it's an art. It really is.
Mhm.
Setting up something like that is, in fact, an art. There's entire, I mean, the whole art of table setting is a thing. I mean, there's been a whole, I mean, who was it? Semi-homemade. Sandra, what's her face? Had a whole section on tablescapes. You know?
Yeah, well, there's a gal in insurance soup that did. She's going to be one of the speakers this next time in May. Her travel booth for going to events and stuff is this brilliant yellow, and it's got this bee influence.
Nice.
And it's just amazing to look at. And she couldn't do what she could do if corporate sat there and said, okay, it's got to look like this. It's got to be branded this way. It's got to be red, white, and blue, boring insurance.
Yes.
And it was just like, wow. And it's like, I could see why, art is, it's got to play some sort of aspect in life in doing that creation. I think it was the gal with they did the big head of.
Kaylee.
Kaylee. I think it's Kaylee.
Could be. You'll have to look and see. But yeah, she's got some mad marketing skills that come from her artistic background. And so do we, for that matter.
Yeah, we're not on genius level. We were kind of mid-range.
At least our pop-ups are bright colored. They're usually, right now it's a bright green. We've got interesting art on the walls. Right behind Matt, there is a sign that says Wenatchee Insurance that is made of moss.
Yes, and one of our clients walked in and says, "I love that sign. It just makes me feel good."
Exactly.
And it's like that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and it's when you are working at a strictly my office, for example, I have art on my walls. I've got butterflies. I've got a drawing of a brain with butterflies coming out of it. I've got a photograph that a friend of mine took. And
Daniel T. Fleming.
He took a picture and he made it art
It's Antelope Canyon, isn't it?
Antelope Canyon, yeah. That's gorgeous. And people comment on that all the time. And having that art makes it warmer. It makes it more accessible. It makes us more human. We're not just robots. And we don't want to be. And you shouldn't strive to be. Okay, one of the controversies that happened in our city not all that long ago is they built a giant roundabout out north of town. At north of town. Put a big roundabout up, which was, it's a traffic learning curve. I don't want to say it's a disaster because frankly, I like it. I think it's working fine, keep traffic flowing. But they put a piece of art in the middle of it. And there was a whole big thing. Okay, choose there's public discussion about which piece is going to go there. And this happened and that happened. It was a big old, we shouldn't need to have that there. It's just a big distraction. Why do we need a piece of art there in the first place? And there's a whole big conversation. We don't need to spend that money on this. We need to spend that money on these things. Well, you know what? Yeah, we do need to spend money on art. That was one of the reasons. That's one of the things that was part of building that was having an artistic connection with it. They chose a kind of a abstract tree look. Yeah. And somebody pointed out it looks like a toilet brush, which is not entirely untrue, but that just amuses the heck out of me just because I'm easily amused. Yeah. But I like it. I think it's kind of cool looking. And we've had a couple of your more stodgy Wenatcheeites about it. Real grumpy pants.
Well, it's that it invokes discussion. Yeah. Even if you call it a toilet brush, it's like, oh yeah, that's funny.
That's a cool toilet brush.
One of the interesting studies, let's get a little bit of the science in it, was there was a scientist in the 90s that made this bed and breakfast, and he was observing couples.
Oh, jeez. So we built a bed and breakfast
built
as a rat maze. Great. Mouse.
And there was, he basically put this pretty bird in the garden. And the couples that would make it, one of the spouses would point out, hey, that's a pretty bird. And the couples that would make it, the other person would acknowledge that. would appreciate their spouse
acknowledging
as identifying that beauty.
They may not have agreed with it as beauty, but they would acknowledge the spouse, seeing the beauty in it.
Correct. It was that connection. It was the, one person seeing, oh, that's beautiful, and the other person acknowledging that person's idea of beauty.
Yes. Not saying, yes, that's pretty as well, but acknowledging that conversation in the first place. That's a really interesting study. And the couples that did well are the ones that acknowledged each other's appreciation.
And the ones that weren't around, in 5 years or so, they would only hit about 30% of the cues of that acknowledgement. So the more that you acknowledge your partner's acknowledgments, the better your relationship's doing.
Your connection, you're more closely connected with each other.
Now, it's also important to note that, hey, your partner's got to have that energy to be making those cues.
And you got to pick up. The whole thing is, if you've got to, it's
a both
partners work from both sides. It's a team effort. That's why you're partners.
So yeah, appreciation is huge.
Appreciation of art, appreciation of what it does for the art energizes a community.
Oh yeah.
I mean, sometimes sometimes the energy of the community is the debate that it drives.
Yes, because good art is provocative.
Yeah. You get something out there that's a provocative piece of performance art, or, something that might be offensive to some, but inspiring to others. But the same piece, you still get the debate about it. You get the engagement with each other. Now, unfortunately, sometimes you get those who are offended, or, get things taken down. That's where you get book bans.
It depends on what side you're coming from. Let's go into the whole ban thing.
Okay.
Because who was it? Was it Milthorpe?
Mapplethorpe. Robert Mapplethorpe.
I never could appreciate his work.
No, but you respected it.
It's questionable. I wouldn't hang a lot of his stuff on the wall.
No, a lot of his stuff does not appeal to. Well, you're basically a cis dude. His stuff was really focused on the LGBTQIA community. It didn't.
No, I'm thinking of like the urine cross.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, that was.
But it made a statement, and it made you think, and it made other people think.
Yeah, but it was still one of those things that would. It's like, no, it's just nasty. And that's my personal take on that.
Right. However, you would not say this needs to be banned.
No, I wouldn't. It's like, okay, that's for someone. It's not for me.
Right.
I'm trying to think of who else is out there that I've found distasteful. And there's not much, and that's what I view is distasteful.
Yeah, it's just not your bag. Doesn't mean it should be banned. It just means it's unpleasant to you. Yeah. Okay, here's a really good example of art that needs to be looked at from a distant perspective. Birth of a Nation. One of the first movies ever made. It is, in fact, quite distasteful in many factors, but it is also a very important piece of art. And if we look at it dispassionately, we can look at it from that perspective. But we also want to look at it from a historical perspective and learn the lessons of what the world was like when this was being made. But we don't want it to go away. We don't want to flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, it's the you can dissect the story even though the story is vulgar.
Exactly. Vulgar stories have a place in the world. Okay, another argument that could be made here's when you're talking about monuments, which has been a huge conversation. Are monuments art? Is that big statue of Robert E. Lee art? That statue of Lenin that was taken out of Russia and moved to Fremont,
Mm-hmm.
when did it become a monument? When did it turn into art? Because when it got moved to Fremont, suddenly it was designated as artistic. I think because it was more ironic at that point.
Yeah, ironic is kind of the journey.
It's just Fremont. They're weird.
Yeah. I was thinking of some of the memorial monuments.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that are crosses, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's some that have been argued whether or not they were art.
Mm-hmm.
Even as recently as last night, I saw someone calling for the ban of the lit up cross on our hillside.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't see that as artistic, though. That doesn't feel artistic to me.
No, it's
symbolic.
It's symbolic. It's also the same symbol that the KKK used in our state in the 20s.
They did electric crosses.
Yeah,
because it was easier than lighting something on fire and carrying it around.
Yeah,
it's harder to carry around something that's on fire.
Even then, Washington State was great.
We're super progressive.
Yeah, super progressive.
But yeah, I mean, it's just the symbolism of a lit cross is unpleasant to many, many people, and again, that's in my opinion is not art. That's symbolic.
Yeah.
Whereas guns go back to say a statue of a general. Is that symbolic or is it artistic?
It depends on how poorly it's done.
I
You know which one I'm talking about. That twisted up one of back to the KKK.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain things that's just like that's kind of vulgar.
Now, one thing you can do with these statues, in my opinion, statues of Confederate leaders should not be on display as our heroes. They could be moved to a museum situation where they can be appreciated for their statement, their position in history, but they should not be held up as heroes and leaders.
So who do you put in that? That's one of those weird things.
Who do you replace them with?
That we have are statues of old war leaders.
Should we actually have statues of people? That's an interesting question.
I one of the things I want to do is go to Philadelphia and see the statue of Rocky.
Is that even still up?
Yeah, it's still up.
They put it back up.
Oh yeah, it's still up.
Yeah. There was a point where it was down.
Yeah, but it is. But
like, that's pop culture.
That's pop culture.
That's that's only historical in the pop culture sense.
I mean, wouldn't you want to see the statue of the Little Mermaid? The original one.
Yeah, but again,
Statue of Liberty.
None of those are real people. None of those are real people. The statue of Rocky, yes, it is based on Sylvester Stallone. However, Rocky Balboa is not a real person. Neither is the Little Mermaid. Neither is the statue of Liberty. These are not real people. Those are more artistic. However, Stonewall Jackson, a real person.
Okay.
Okay. And that's different. That's memorial versus art. This is a whole nother podcast we're getting into.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's like the Rodin's thinker.
Yeah. Or the David.
Or the David.
I mean, that can be. There are people who find David vulgar because he's naked.
Yeah, and we just recently had a art teacher in Florida fired and got sent. Italy invited them to do a tour of Italy and see all the things that she got fired for.
Yeah, because for some reason Renaissance work was being determined as obscene.
Yeah,
and that's a little weird, but that's a whole nother that's a big conversation. Okay, speaking of art, I'm going to do a little pitch right now.
Okay.
All right, so Eastmont High School choir department is doing their annual fundraiser, the Bella Notte, and it's on December 3rd. I have to look. It's in the very first part of December. Let me. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that we went and saw our son's first choir performance, and we got pitched this thing. And
I think it's the second, because that's a Saturday.
It cracked me up, because it's like, okay, we got a son that's in choir. We ourselves did choir, and of course they appealed to all the business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh yeah, we're doomed. We're gonna hear about this for the next month or so.
Yeah.
Despite our time being just a super crunch time.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, I did that. Hey, I need to.
Need to help.
I need to help, because that's my responsibility. One of the things that I've always been complimented, it's why I got freaking recruited when to do choir in high school, was, oh my gosh, listen to him talk.
Yeah. You do have that voice.
I do have that voice, and it wouldn't be that voice if I didn't take some choir.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
no,
you don't think so?
you there are vocal training and vocal thought, and it's like, how do I know what a long vowel is?
Yeah.
Or, how do I know to do proper diction, so it carries an inflection and all that other nonsense.
Yeah. Diction is something I absolutely learned from choir. But back to Bella Notte.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing is it's a fundraiser. It supports the choir and their trips. And for your $30 ticket, you get a choice of 4 Italian meals. You get a little mini concert from the chamber choir and the jazz choir, and you're helping a good cause.
Yeah, and so we're going to help out what we can, because we are broke as a joke, because we're in open enrollment, and everything goes to marketing, and we've got very little time on our hand, because again, open enrollment. Every little moment goes into.
Yeah, I want to say it's the first weekend of December. So it's the second, probably the second, because that's the Saturday. It could be the third, which is Sunday. I don't know. It's going to be at Wenatchee Valley College. We'll give you more information. But if you're a small business, support it. You can donate. You can create they're doing a silent auction. If you put together a basket, they can do a silent auction. And if you want to lend a hand, you just reach out here to Wenatchee Insurance, and we will facilitate for you.
They don't even have their website up, and you're pitching hard.
Well, yeah, this is important.
Okay,
we'll facilitate if you want to help.
Yeah, we're going to enable the best we can. We'll be helping pitch it, because it's one of those things that we do kind of instinctually at this point.
Yeah,
is we create marketing materials.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We just sort of it's becoming automatic for us. Are we running out of time?
We're getting there.
Okay, my gut said we're getting close to 30.
But one of the things that is we become this marketing machine.
We have, which is actually artistic in its own right.
It is. It's very Geiger of us, because it is an organic machine moving things forward. And
although there's less, chest bursting.
Yeah. But we, to do what we do it's funny, because people have this assumption that, oh no, it's cold and impersonal. And that's when we start to get our, artistic and bring in flair. And, it's like, oh, well, why do you got a Wenatchee Wild? Well, one of the things we do is we sponsor the Wenatchee Wild. And we felt that was important to our community. It's like, well, why do you got all these wonderful posters of the outdoors?
Because we like the outdoors, and they're pretty.
Because we wanted to bring the outdoors in. And where did you get that? We got that on Etsy. We supported small printers. Well, why do you have a big live edge desk that raises and lowers on your front? Well, because we needed that woodsy feel. That was very open.
It's a cool desk.
Well, why do you have gnomes in the corner?
Because they're personal to us.
Well, gnomes are very forest-like, and yes, they are very personal to us, because we had a smaller size on our wedding cake, which was made of Rice Krispies.
Yes.
We wouldn't have a Rice Krispie wedding cake if we weren't creative.
That's right.
We wouldn't be creative if we didn't have art.
There you go.
So
art shows up in places you don't notice. Art around you.
Mm-hmm.
You might not even realize it's happening, but it's there and it impacts you. If it wasn't there, you would notice.
And really, to make those connections, appreciate your partner's.
Your partner's noticing the art.
Your partner's noticing the art when they get that artistic flair and bring something this spin of a particular awesome phrase. Acknowledge them. It's important.
I spun a phrase the other day that Matt just adored. He's going to use it in one of his marketing campaigns.
Well, yeah, you have to acknowledge your partners, or else they will shut down.
True.
And they will wither and go away.
And you don't want your relationships to wither and go away. And if you do, well, then be a little more honest about
it. So yeah, start to look around you, open up, appreciate. Hey, that's a freaking awesome T-shirt you picked out. I like that. Or and start encouraging people to express themselves. You might hear more songs.
That's true.
You might get more cakes baked.
That's been known to happen.
And pie. So yeah, the arts are important to your business and community and relationships.
And your existence. Art feeds the soul. It does.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
That's your opinion?
I like my opinion.
See, I think that everything flows with art.
Without art, life wouldn't be nearly as interesting.
Okay, so we're out of here today. Find some appreciation, support the arts, and have a great day.
Bye.